Hi everyone, I'm Dale Smith, aka Journo Dale, and we're here to talk about Canadian politics. All right, we're here with Royal Commentator Extraordinaire Patricia Treble. The King is on his way in a little over a week, and so I figured we'd do a pre-show of what we're expecting. Patricia, why don't we start with this is a very short trip. It's 24 hours. So what can we expect in that short amount of time?
Yeah, I mean, really, they are touching down. They've got one night at Rideau Hall, and then they're gone after
Yeah.
they open Parliament. Very short trip. It's all about symbolism, though, right? I mean, I think we've talked about this before. This is all about him being the King of Canada, her
Yeah.
being Queen Camilla, the Queen of Canada, coming to open the Canadian Parliament, 45th Parliament after the 45th election, and it's all everything is focused, I think, on that. We haven't got the rundown on what exactly is going to be happening, but knowing those two, knowing past practice, even though they're going to be jet lagged completely, they're still going to do a lot. I think they're gonna pack a lot in, especially to keep the focus on Canada's sovereignty. I would imagine this government, it seems to take visuals very seriously, which I think is very much needed.
Hmm.
And I would imagine everything is going to be focused on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were kind of talking off camera beforehand the fact that on a normal royal visit, you've got several stops around Canada, and they all show the local communities and so on and so on. But we don't have time for that time this year. It's in, it's out, and the second day is going to be entirely focused on the opening of Parliament. So it's that first day that they're here that I think is really the open question about what they're hoping to pack into that will be the symbolism for King of Canada.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look back at the last time there was a there was an opening of Parliament. Sorry, we do not call it a state opening. It's still in my
Even though
muscle
that's what they've
memory.
been doing this time around,
I
but
know, but it's
yeah,
not good.
yeah,
It was 1957. And it was the Queen, and she came for just a few days, and that was the highlight. So if we look at that, there was a big state dinner. I don't know that we'll see that again. Of course, Queen Elizabeth II, she wore this amazing gown. It had this drape of green maple leaves all over it. It's actually in the Canadian Museum of History. They have
okay,
that gown, and it is well worth it. I think we're going to see a lot of symbolism about Canada. I think everything will be shaped for this. I keep going back to there was a post that Phil Lagacé, who's one of the crown experts in this country, he did, and he had four things. He said, get the king over here, get
hmm
him to open Parliament, get him to sign, assent of a few things, and get
which
him
we
to
couldn't
unveil
do
his.
if he's also opening Parliament, but that's just a logistical.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But also get him to unveil the $20 bill that he's going to be on. So, and I think you're good. What you're going to see is you're going to see all that symbolism. And I think for Queen Camilla, and I'm going to put I love talking about royal jewelry. We're going to see their five, count them, five Canadian brooches, royal brooches, and I think we're going to see a selection of them.
okay.
She's a woman who can wear jewelry, and we're going to get the maple leaf brooch. We've got two maple leaf brooches. We've got a snowflake brooch. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. I think we're going to see all that. The big question for me, and I don't know what you've heard, is how they're going to be the formality of the actual opening of Parliament, whether he's going to be in Canadian Armed Forces uniform, whether he'll be in a suit, like what sort of thing. Normally, for the British opening of Parliament, he is in a military uniform. I
Right.
would hope we would see that. I would really hope we would see that because it would reinforce his role as King of Canada.
Yeah, I would expect so personally as well. Especially considering he is the commander in chief of the Canadian Armed Forces in the titular sense. I mean, the Governor General exercises that on a more operational sense. But I would expect that would probably be the case,
Yeah.
and especially because he's also colonel in chief of a number of Canadian regiments and so on. So I would imagine that there's going to be something around that in there.
Yeah.
Um, The other thing
Yeah,
I was going to mention is this is also going to be a slightly different opening of Parliament because of the way in which a
yeah,
Parliament is in two separate buildings right now. It's
yeah.
no longer in Center Block because of the refurbishment. The Senate building is a block and a half away from the West Block. And that creates a few issues in terms of the Black Rod
Yep,
has to get on a
yep,
little bus to go shuttle to West
yep,
Block,
yep.
knock on the doors, and then take the shuttle back. And then what they've tended to do is have a few MPs in the chamber in West Block when Black Rod knocks on the door and invites them into the Senate chamber, and you have a bunch of MPs already waiting in the Senate building for him to return. So I imagine that would be somehow that how that's likely going to take place here, and I don't know if that needs to be adapted because the king or not.
Well, they're going to have to adapt it for the king, right?
Yeah,
Because Blackrod does the knocking before the king is on the throne.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's a lovely building. So this is the old, for those of who kind of know downtown Ottawa in a way. This is the building. It's the old train station, which is a conference center that has been converted into the Senate, and it's right across from the Chateau Laurier. So it's right beside the Cenotaph, the War Memorial.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he can come right up, right up Sussex, hang a right, as I say, and he's right there. But yeah, they're going to have to figure out the logistics. There is one advantage, which is that there is a tunnel. When it was a train station, they built a tunnel underneath the street to go to the Chateau Laurier because you didn't want, patrons of the Chateau Laurier to get their feet wet.
Yeah.
And I imagine that's where they're going to probably stuff some of the MPs, just so that they're not technically in the Senate yet. But
Yeah,
it
it's
is
quite
going to be,
possible.
it's going to be a logistics thing. It's also really, really small, and I think people have to be prepared for that. The Senate itself is not a huge place,
No.
but this building itself, you and I, we've been in there a few times, and it is physically very small. We are simply just not gonna. We're gonna avoid talking about that carpet, though, aren't we?
Yes, but you did mention the thrones, and I did want to actually bring that up
Mhm.
because when they moved into the new building, they commissioned new thrones for Canada for the temporary Senate. So these are temporary thrones, while the real ones are being refurbished along with
Yep.
Center Block. But that's these right here.
Yep.
And so this is the first time that they're actually going to get used by royals.
Yep. Yep. And I have to wonder, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm wondering if one of the things that they might do is actually take a look at the construction site at Parliament Hill. Because that would actually, I think, pique a lot of their interest. And, I mean, Charles is very much into architecture, into preserving architecture, and from all accounts, from the videos we've all seen, they've been doing a fabulous job.
Mhm.
But it would be interesting, and there's also a very big hole. Last time I looked, it was still a very, very big hole in the
Yes.
middle of the Great Lawn,
Yeah.
because they've been digging down. So I think that might actually intrigue them, and that might kind of set it up, especially for all the foreign media. And there is a lot of interest already. I
Mhm.
think there's going to be a large contingent. Everyone's going to be watching it, and it almost feels, I think, now that we're getting to know the new prime minister, he's one who knows that optics matter. You see him, signing away the carbon tax credit and things like that. I mean,
Yeah, I
yes,
have feelings about those decision note signings, but
I have images, I have feelings too, but he knows that optics matter in this day and age.
yeah.
And I mean, he's doing it all according to the rules. Um, People can interpret it, and I think that the man, let's face it, this is all, as I keep telling everyone, this is all for one person who lives down in Washington D.C., and for him, optics matter.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that can all sync up, but it is a very, very tight timeline. I mean, for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't imagine there's a lot of sleep happening among the logistics people right now.
No, no. I have not. I would not imagine there is either, and
No.
I'm sure that because the visit was arranged very hastily. I mean, I wasn't sure that logistically they were going to be able to do that because we know the King's schedule is already
Yeah,
pretty packed well in advance.
yeah.
And so for them to have dropped everything to do this 24-hour trip, I think is also just kind of interesting in terms of what it's saying, but also the fact that they made it an effort to do this instead of waiting for the full royal tour whenever that's going to happen.
What exactly? Because we were supposed to have the tour last year. King got cancer. That
Yeah,
was off. This year is the year of elections, and because we didn't know when the federal election was going to be, they have to plan the King's schedule. So, like,
yeah,
we lost 2025, we thought, and so everything was leaning towards 2026, which I think is going to be when the big tour is going to happen. But at the same time, he's also packing more and more. So this year alone, he is well ahead of his sister. Normally they're about neck and neck in in doing engagements. He's something like 40 engagements ahead. And
wow,
he's accounted for right now, according to my data, about 1/5 of all working royal engagements. One man.
wow,
So he is on a mission. I mean, he knows, look, he's in his late 70s. He knows time is not on his side, and he's pushing it this fast enough. And by all accounts, he wanted this. If it could work into the calendar, if they could shoehorn it in, he was going to do it. But I mean, right now, May and June, these are the busiest months of the entire royal schedule, especially for him. So it says a lot that he and the Queen are going to get on a plane, and they're going to go, 5 time zones, to do this for basically a 24-hour visit. Yeah.
yeah. Shifting back to Camilla, one of the
Mhm.
things that most people don't realize is that she has Canadian ancestors.
Yep.
One of her ancestors was an early pre-Confederation prime minister, actually.
Yep.
And so, I mean, they'd made a bit of a deal of this on her very first visit to Canada, but now that we are much more focused on Canadian sovereignty, and so on, how do you think they might play that up this time?
I've got to wonder maybe they're looking to be. I'm going to be honest. I had completely forgotten about that. It's one of those things they do not mention, um, and I've got to wonder if I'm not sure they're going to focus on that. But she has regiments in Canada, and she's
Yeah.
always made a point of every time she comes, she will be here. And one of them is the Queen's Own Rifles of Canada, which is in my home base, Toronto. And I would imagine they will probably be playing a part in this. It's the second oldest continuous regiment in the country, 1860. So I can see that happening. I think simply they're going to do kind of whatever the Canadians really want them to do, but they have interests themselves. And so I'm going to imagine they were at Byward Market last time, so I can't imagine they're going to do that again. But I think they're going to probably want to get out to at least see people at least once in the trip, because otherwise it's going to be very formal, behind the scenes, only for invited guests. So they're
Yeah.
going to have want one event, and it's going to be interesting to see when the itinerary comes, just how packed it is. She does not handle, just so you know, long distance travel well. She does
Okay.
not. She does not enjoy it. She does it, but she does not enjoy it. So the fact that she's coming, is significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Um, yeah, and I'm trying to imagine what that kind of an engagement might be, whether it's just a walk around or walkabout at some place. I'm trying to think of something they could do,
Open.
an open
Yeah.
or unveil, but I'm
Well,
not
because
entirely sure.
the Tulip Festival will be pretty much done by then.
Yeah, yeah, the
So
tulips would
that's
pretty much
yeah,
be wilted
exactly.
at that point.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's lots of options. I think they're just, they'll figure it all out, and it's simply just cramming it into the schedule. And look, as I said, like these, last time they were here, they were doing 8, 9 events a day, and that's just really quite typical for them.
Hmm.
They like packing everything into a day. But they're going to have to come back. I mean, they've even kind of shifted off, President Macron of France. The state visit, we'd heard rumors that it was going to be in Britain, it was going to be in May, is now going to be in July. And I have to wonder if Canada played a part in kind of pushing that off. It was just going to be way too much.
Yeah.
Um, but we're also going to see, and this is going to be what I really want to see is when he speaks, is he going to give a speech beyond? I mean, the speech from the throne is not written by him. Of course, it's
No.
written by the government. It's the government's priorities. But are we going to hear from him as King of Canada? Because of course he can only talk on the advice of government.
Yeah.
And but it's going to be interesting to see because, as you know, Prime Minister Carney said just a few days ago, he wasn't thrilled to hear that Britain had extended a state visit to President Trump, given everything that was going on. And the king is kind of in that bind. He's, of course, King of Britain, King of Canada, King of 13 other realms.
Yeah.
It's going to be fascinating because he's going to be walking a tightrope. But this is what he's done. This is what he's practiced his whole life. He's been doing this all his life.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone who could do it, I think it's him. And he speaks perfect French.
Yes.
That helps.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people don't realize that, and
Yeah.
that his father was educated in France. So.
His father was educated in Germany and then in Scotland. But they lived in France for a while. The family lived in
Okay.
France when they were first in exile. Yeah. And he speaks German as well. And when he was in Italy, was talking to their legislature and spoke very good Italian. Kind of surprised people. So, but it's gonna be good. And Dale, I'm hoping that one of us will get into that tiny little Senate to see history being made.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to be me, just given the logistics, but
I don't think it's going to be me either, but my fingers are crossed because
yeah,
it will be history. I mean, only the second opening of Parliament by a monarch, and
yeah,
that emphasis, I think, is not going to be lost on a lot of people around the world who are going to be watching this. Yeah.
yeah. And then the rest of the time will be you and I correcting people that no, he's not the king of the UK when he's here. He's the
No.
king of Canada,
No.
and that
Yeah.
we've had separate crowns since 1931, and people need to get that through their heads.
Exactly. But I think it's going to be emphasized because he's going to be coming almost certainly. I mean, I can't imagine why not on a Canadian Forces plane.
Yeah.
We've got the new planes, right? So they're going to be a little more comfortable. And he's going to be arriving as King of Canada. They go over, they pick him up, they bring him back.
Yeah.
And that's always been the tradition. And so it'll be reinforced. What I'm really looking forward to, and we should maybe do a deconstruct, is what the American coverage is going to be. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
Well, and again, that's going to be a whole lot of, they're going to say King of England, and it's no,
hasn't been a King of England since 1702 when William III died.
Yeah.
So get over it, guys.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, thanks for doing this, Patricia, and we will chat post visit, no doubt, and compare notes on everything that's happened. But in the meantime, we'll talk soon.
Ciao.
Cheers. And that's everything for this week. Join us again next week for some more Canadian politics. I'm Dale Smith. It's at Journo_Dale on Twitter and JournoDale __ on Bluesky. And don't forget to like the video, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Thanks, everyone.